All right.
John, good luck. I'm going to be quiet on my side here.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar with John Rofrano. For those of you who do not know him, he is our DevOps champion with an IBM research. And anything about Bluemix, anything you ever need to know about Bluemix, John can tell you. And he also teaches a course on this at NYU. So trust me, he knows what he's talking about. Over to you, John.
Okay, well, welcome, fellow hackers, or blue hackers, I should say. Let me share my screen here. Okay. All right, you guys can see my overview chart.
Yes, we can.
So I'm going to give you a brief overview of Bluemix, just so you understand what's available, because Bluemix is a little unlike other clouds in that it is this mixture of technologies that you have to choose from. And then you can decide, for the hackathon, what's the best technology for me. Today I'm going to go over Cloud Foundry. I believe tomorrow, the day after, we're going to do one on Docker. So I'll just give you a brief overview, and then we'll dive right into some hands-on stuff. So you might be asking, what is Bluemix? Well, it's blue as in big blue. And it's mix as in a mixture. I'm preference to traditional cloud mix myself, but it is a mixture of technologies that IBM offers. So what are those technologies? Well, we've got Cloud Foundry, which is what I'm going to show you today. We've got Docker, which is a containerization technology that you're probably familiar with containers. I'm going to show you tomorrow or the day after. Then there's OpenWhisk, which is really cool. And then there's plain old VMs on OpenStack, which I'm going to ignore for now because I'll explain to you why you really don't want to deal with VMs, especially when you're doing a hackathon. Now, plus there's lots more. I'll show you a little bit of it when we go into Bluemix, but there's DevOps and data analytics and security and storage and all sorts of stuff. All the Watson and mobile stuff is in there. Lots of stuff for you guys to play with, lots of stuff for you guys to be creative with, especially the Watson stuff. It's got a complete developer cloud stack. So there's Kubernetes, there's Armada clusters of Kubernetes if you want to use Docker. There's Cloud Foundry for your 12-factor apps. And then the event-driven stuff is with OpenWhisk. And then a whole fabric that runs on top of that. You could do monitoring and logging and a DevOps tool chain. I'm going to take you through a little bit of that today. So which do you choose? Well, if you look at the entire stack from infrastructure as a service, platform, and application as a service, infrastructure is really the VMs. You don't want to get involved in that, right? VMs, you've got to manage them, you've got to patch them, not the place you want to be, especially when you have 2 days to hack something out. You really want to be at the platform as a service level, right? You want to be using something like Cloud Foundry or Docker or OpenWhisk. And then on top of that is the software that you're going to build. So if we look at Cloud Foundry, it's this really cool platform as a service technology. If you're familiar with Heroku, if any of you have played with Heroku and pushed maybe Ruby on Rails apps to Heroku, it's the same kind of approach. In fact, it even uses Heroku build packs. So you can just do a CF push and push your app to the cloud. It's really that simple. There's a couple of configuration files you need. I'm going to show you all those configuration files today. So you can use Java, Python, Node.js, Ruby, bunch of stuff. The difference between infrastructure and platform as a service, if you're not familiar, is with infrastructure, you've got a virtual machine, an operating system, and then your stuff. And with Cloud Foundry, it's just Cloud Foundry provides everything, and there's your stuff, right? Your apps and your library. Docker, as you may know, is a containerization technology that we'll go into in the next session, but it's a really cool way of packaging up your apps and deploying them to the cloud. If you're not familiar with VMs and containers, with VMs, you've got a guest OS on each one of the VMs, and then your app on top of that. With Docker, it eliminates the guest OS. It shares the kernel of the host and just gives you these really small packages that you can deploy. So at 20,000 feet, I'll go through this in the Docker one and skip over Docker and Docker Cloud because I'm going to go through it more. We've got Kubernetes, so you can use Docker API or the Kubernetes API, and I'll go over that next time. And then there's OpenWhisk. I'm not going to do OpenWhisk today, but it's interesting for you to understand because you might find it extremely useful in your application. It's really kind of this event-driven, it's called function as a service. So you've got Lambda in AWS, and you got Cloud Functions in Google Cloud, and we have OpenWhisk in our cloud. And so what it is, it allows you to subscribe to feeds, to messages, and then it'll call your function when that message comes in and satisfies a particular rule. So I've used this, for example. I'm doing a project here at IBM where I'm looking at vulnerabilities in containers that are running and then patching the images and redeploying the containers. And the way that I designed that was I've got a Kafka bus that I post these vulnerabilities to, and then I have OpenWhisk functions that just listen for a vulnerability and then go off and call the remediation. So if you need to do event-driven stuff, really cool for that. Supports Node.js, Java, Swift, Python, and Docker. Once you get to Docker, you can put a C++ or any language in there. And then you can subscribe to periodic events or Cloud or Message Hub, which is what I was using, Kafka, mobile push. So if any of you are going to do mobile stuff, you might want to look into OpenWhisk events. And then there's plain old VMs. I don't think any of you are going to need to deploy anything in the VM because you've got to patch it and health check it, and don't like those, right? So the advantage of using a platform as a service is minimal setup. You got a large number of services, very easy to scale, right? Very, very low friction, right? So it kind of feeds into this whole DevOps continuous deployment. And I'm going to show you how to do a little DevOps tool chain today, and then we'll do another one in the next session. So why is PaaS important for research and for developers everywhere? This is what we all face. We really want to innovate, but we've got all this technical debt in setting up a VM, installing WebSphere, installing DB2, installing, whatever, get a VM, and you really don't want to be dealing with that. You want the cloud provider to provide all that technical debt, and you just want to work up in the sunshine, right? And just innovate on top of that. So really, really critical for a hackathon where you don't have a lot of time. Time is not on your side. Okay, enough talking. Let's move on to the demo. All right, so if you go to bluemix.net, you'll be presented with a logon screen, and I'm going to log in here. Now, I apologize. My account is not a brand new account as yours might be, so I do have a couple of apps running in it. Now, I had logged on this morning, so it didn't prompt me for user ID and password. It was probably still in my browser cache. But it would prompt you for user ID and password, and then you might see an empty screen that says create your first app or something like that. These are all the apps that I have running in BlueMix because I do use it in my day work. And what we're going to do, we're going to create this lab BlueMix CF demo. So the first thing I want to do is delete it. So I'm going to show you, before I show you how to create it, I'm going to show you how to delete. I'm going to delete this app. I'm going to delete the route to the app because I'm going to recreate it, and we'll just wait for that to go away. So now I want to create a new app on BlueMix, a Crowd Foundry app. So I'm going to click on this Create App icon. And what it will do is take me to the app section of all the BlueMix services. Let me ignore this for a minute and just scroll down to show you. So here it's OpenWhisk, here's mobile. But if I go down into these other services, let me go to these services. I could see Internet of Things, right? You've got context mapping, you've got Watson, so there's conversation discovery, natural language classifier, lots and lots and lots of services. I'm going to show you how to connect to one service so that you understand how to build an app and then connect to a service. Because if you can't connect to a service, your app's not going to be very useful, right? There's always something that you need on the back end. So there's lots of these that you can go by. You can scroll through them yourself and play with them. Every one that you go into, there's usually docs so you can understand. So if I go into, let me just pick one out of Watson. I'll pick Watson Conversation just to show you briefly. You'll see there's a link here, View Docs. So if you want to know how to use this, you click on View Docs. It'll usually give you sample code and explain to the API and whatnot. So that's something you definitely want to do. Let's go back and create our app. So I'm going to go back up to the app section here. Now, here are the Cloud Foundry apps. So you see you've got Liberty for Java, Node.js, we got Swift, Pages, Go, PHP, Python, Ruby, everything you can imagine. And if there's something that you want to work in a language, you can bring a build pack with you, right? You can get a community build pack and use that. But we're going to use one of the ones that are here. And actually, I'm going to use one of the boilerplates. So right above this are the boilerplates. The boilerplates are kind of an app environment with things that people usually use with it. So you've got Ruby Sinatra and Python Flask. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Python Flask because I'm a Python programmer. So I'm going to click on that. And this brings me to the page where I can create my application. Again, there's always this view docs link. So if you ever need to know, how to use this or instantiate one of these, it'll tell you. And I'm going to type in an app name. So I'm going to type in Lab BlueMix CF, which is the app name that I had before. And notice it's filling out a host name for me. Now, the app name doesn't have to be the same as the host name. And in fact, once you start deploying apps again and again, you're going to have an app version 1, version 2, version 3. You're going to want the host name to remain the same because you want your customer to just hit on that host name to get to your application. So this is the real application host name. It is really going to be live at lab-bluemix-cf.mybluemix.net. So if that's already taken, when I hit the create button, it'll tell me that somebody's already taken that. None of you take it before I hit create. And I'm going to hit the create button. Hopefully it worked. Yeah, none of you guys got that before me. And so now it is deploying my application. And it's giving me some instructions on how to get started. You'll notice there's a link here to download the BlueMix command line interface. So if you want to use command line, I'm going to show you how to do it without the command line. But if you want to use command line, you can install that BlueMix command line interface. And then you can use the command line. I'll show you a couple of commands. And then you can download the starter code in a zip file. The reason the starter code is useful is because there's a couple of files, which I'll show you, that you have to have in order to deploy your applications. And so you copy those out of the starter code zip file, you put those in your project, edit them a little bit, and you're ready to go. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So right now it's deploying. While it's deploying, let me show you the command line interface. So once you download it, you can do all these CF commands. If I just hit CF, there's a bunch of CF commands that I can do. So let's do CF apps, and that'll show me all the apps that we saw in the UI, right? So there's my Lab BlueMix app, and it says I have 1 out of 1 instances, and there's a bunch of my other apps. I can do CF services. It'll show me all my services. So these are the services that I've already created and deployed, and I'm going to show you how to do one of those. And I have application code in here already that I've cloned from my repository. And in order to deploy it, all I have to say is CF push, and that's it. CF push, off to BlueMix it goes. You'll see it scroll up the screen, statuses and whatnot. And then at the end, hopefully, it'll say that it's successfully running. And then you can make more changes, CF push, make more changes, CF push. That's kind of primitive. It kind of gets old, especially you're in a hackathon. You've got 3 people on your team. Who's pushing when, right? So what I want to show you how to do is set up a pipeline, a DevOps pipeline, so that you guys can just commit to GitHub. And then from GitHub, it'll deploy automatically to BlueMix. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let me not do any CF pushes. So now it says my app is running in BlueMix. I can visit the app URI, and there it is. Make it a little bigger. That's the default Flash starter app, and that's the code that you can download. Okay, so let me go back. Oh, it opened it up in a new tab. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so let's go over and look at the code. I have it in a window here somewhere. I hate when my Mac moves my windows on me. Okay, I think it's on this one, that's why, because it's behind where I was showing. So this is the zip file, the Lab BlueMix JR, and it has this little welcome pie in it, and that's the application that was running. But more important than that, so that gives you starter code. So right there, if you've never used Python Flask before, you've got some code to get started. And I'm going to show you the code that I'm about to deploy, so I won't go into too much detail on this. But it has these special files. It has this manifest file. The manifest file shows BlueMix how to deploy, and I'll show you that bigger again. Don't worry that they're too small. And it has this proc file, which tells BlueMix how to run it. So let me go over and show you the code that we're about to deploy. So here's the application. And in this application, there is a manifest file. I'm going to make this much bigger so you guys can see it. So in this manifest file, it gives the path to build the application, which is current directory, but it doesn't have to be. How much memory, how many instances, you can up it to 2 instances or 3 or 4 or 5 or more. The name that we typed in when we went to the GUI, the host name that we want to use, the domain, BlueMix domain, disk quota, and then any services that you want to bind to. So let me go show you how to bind them in the UI first, and then this file will make more sense to you. So let me go back out to overview. You'll notice I'm using the Python BlueHack. I've got one instance running. If I wanted to run more instances, I could just plus or minus up at 1 or 2. If I want to use more or less memory, I can raise that up or down. But right now, what I want to do is I need a database. And I want to use a Redis database for this particular application. So I'm going to come over to Connections, over here under Getting Started. And it says there's no connections. Would you like to connect an existing or connect a new? Now, I already have a Redis database, and on the free tier, you only get one. But I'm going to hit Connect New so you can see how you would select the database. So I hit Connect New, and it brings me down to the database services. I'll click on Data and Analytics. Sorry, it did not bring me down to database services. I had database in my mind. It brought me to all the services. You know, I could have done Watson or mobile or any other kind of service. So I clicked on database just to get down here quickly. There's a number of database services. Many of them have free tiers. They've got MongoDB and DB2 on the cloud and IBM Graph. I'm going to go down to these third-party databases and click on Redis. And that's going to select Redis. Now, one thing I don't want to do is click on, oh, it's telling me, this is cool. It used to just say create. Now it's telling me that I have to upgrade to use this. It used to say create. And so if you hit create, it would cost you $4.99 a month. That's not $4.99, it's $499 a month because it just picks the first plan. So you want to scroll down and look for the free plan. Whatever service it is, they're going to have a set of plans. You can scroll down, look for the free plan. Here's a 30 megabyte one for free. You'll notice my update my service turned to create. And so now I can click on create. I can change the name if I want. And what I did was I made it Redis Cloud with no spaces. But you can name it anything you want. Now, if I click create, I'm going to get an error message. It's going to say you already have a free one, and so you have to pick something else. But when you hit create, it's going to work. All right, so let's go back to my previous screens, and I'm going to have select an existing service. Okay, so I'm going to do connect an existing service, and then I'm going to connect to my Redis service. But you'll notice I've got availability monitoring. I've got the IBM Message Hub. That's my Kafka bus that I'm using in one of my projects. I've got a cloud database. I also use that in one of my projects. The message broker is something that I wrote that brokers messages to the Message Hub. So you can create your own services. I'm going to click on this Redis Cloud and say connect. Now, when you said create, you would wind up at this exact screen, right? So whether you say create or whether you reconnect, you get to the screen. It says, do you want to restage your app? Restage your app means to reboot it, right? And attach the Redis service and reboot it so it can pick up the Redis service. The code that's in there doesn't do anything right now. It doesn't know about Redis, so I'm going to cancel. But if I had already uploaded my code, then I could use that code to I could use that to deploy my service. So now I've got my Redis service, and it's got a View Credentials button on here. Now I'm not going to go view my credentials because we're recording the screen. But what it does, it's going to show you. And as a matter of fact, let me show you what it will show you because I have all this stuff. You guys can download this presentation. I'll make it available to you, but it's just going through all the stuff. So here we are at View Credentials, and I've happily blurred out my credentials for real. But this is the important part. So how does my code connect to the database? All right. Well, there's this environment variable called vcap services. And vcap services is going to have a JSON structure that has all the services that you bound your application to. Now, I've only bound it to one service, and that service is named Redis Cloud. That's not the name that I gave it. The name that I gave it is down here where it says name, Redis Cloud. That was my name. So if you have multiples of a service, you could parse through this JSON where name equals the name I'm looking for, right? You can make that a unique name and then always pull out the one that you want. So right now there's a service, the high level one is Redis Cloud. It is in an array, right? So it's a JSON array. And in that array, it has could have multiple instances. If I made multiple instances of Redis, they'd be in this array. And then it's got an attribute called credentials. And credentials has hostname, password, and port. So that's what this Python code is doing here. It's saying, out of the environment, go get me VCAP services. Then, out of VCAP, get me Redis Cloud. I cheated. I took the 0th element because I knew I only had one thing in the array. So this is saying Redis Cloud, 0 is the first one, and then credentials, which is this little stanza here, okay? So now I'm getting that credentials, and then I'm saying hostname is the cred's hostname, password is the cred's password, port is the cred's port, right? So I'm pulling that out of the environment. Why is this important? Well, you might want to deploy your environment to dev, and then create a new space in Bluemix called test or stage, and then another one called prod. And clearly, when you're testing in the test environment, you don't want to be using the prod database. So this allows your app to be bound to any service in true 12-factor fashion, right? Be bound to any service on the back end, and you always pull it out of the environment. So you don't care if that Redis thing goes belly up and somebody deletes it and creates a new one, app doesn't care. Restart the app, it'll read VCAP services, pull out the new credentials. It's fat, dumb, and happy. It's going to keep on working, okay? So that's really important. Let's go look at the code that does it. So this is this Redis Cloud here is the Redis Cloud that's in the Bluemix. So if I go back to my command line and I say CF services, right, that's my Redis Cloud service. So that's where I got that from, right? The service name is called Redis Cloud. I happen to call it Redis Cloud with an uppercase R and a C. And when I put it in my manifest file, that's the name I want to use, the name that I chose for that. Now you can see why I didn't put a space in it, because I was too lazy to put quotes around it. So I don't like to put spaces in things that make more work for me as a programmer, because I'm a lazy programmer. Okay, manifest file, really important. You're going to get that out of the sample. And then you can decide how many instances you want to run of your app. Matter of fact, let me change this to 2, and let me save it. We'll go redeploy this app, and then you'll see 2 instances running. The other thing is the proc file. The proc file, it tells, this is kind of a web rack thing. This tells Cloud Foundry, how do I start my app? Who do I start? How do I start it? Web is just a token. You could have called it foo. You could have called it anything. So it's some token that identifies it with a colon. And then, how do I start my service? Of all the Python files that are in here, which one is the one that starts the service? Now, if you were using GUnicorn or something, or some other web server, you put that command in here with any parameters or anything. So this is, how do you want Cloud Foundry to start it? I just want to say Python on my server.py file. And that server.py file will then run the rest of my service. The third thing that I noticed wasn't in the zip file, but it used to be, oh, and this one's going to go bad, is the Python version that you want to use. Especially with Python, you could use version 3, you could use version 2, and actually 13 is the latest build pack. So I'm going to ask it to use, please use Python 2.7.13 when you're running my app. So those are the 3 magic files: manifest YAML, runtime TXT, and proc file with a capital P that tells Bluemix how to run your app. Everything else is just purely your app, right? Just your app. Okay, now let me show you the code. So here's, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, right where the code starts. So this is the ubiquitous pet service demo. Everybody seems to be using it. So it's a pet service demo. I make a call to initialize Redis, and then I run the app, right? And I pull the port, and whether you want debug out of the environment, right? In 12-factor fashion. I don't know what port I'm going to run on, and so those are way up at the top here. I say, go get whether debug is on or off, and go get the port out of the environment. Okay, so here's the important thing, initialize Redis. So this was my take on how to handle this. I've seen a bunch of different takes on it. So what I do is say, if VCAP services is in the environment, then go use it, right? So then I get VCAP services out of the environment. I load it as a JSON file, so that creates a Python dictionary for me, called services, and then I get the creds, as you saw in the slides, out of Redis Cloud 0 credentials. and then I make a little log. So why am I logging? Well, there's no way to get into that container when things go wrong and SSH in and fish around. Actually, they did make a way to SSH in, but don't do it, right? You want your runtime to be immutable. So you want to log things so that you know this is happening, that's happening, because quite often your logs are the only thing you have, right? Once your app gets scaled up and scaled back down, the guys that got scaled down are gone. So if you didn't log stuff well, you don't have information. Not really important for hackathon, but maybe, right? Could really save you if you're trying to debug why something's not working at the last minute. And then I have a little connect to Redis function that I wrote. It's up here. And what it does, Redis happens to be really happy when you connect to it. Whether it worked or not, it just says, okay. And then the first command you make, it goes, oh, no. Yeah. So what I do is I try to ping Redis in a try-catch block to make sure that the connection actually worked. Put that in a function so I didn't have a bunch of try-catch blocks. So that was kind of a Redis nuance. Now, when I'm developing this app on my laptop for the hackathon, I don't want to push it to BlueMix every time I want to figure out, did this thing work? Did it work? Did it work? I want to run it locally. So what I do here is say, well, if VCAP services is not in the environment, then let's assume that Redis is running on localhost. Now, I run Redis in a Docker container, which I'll show you next time. But the Docker container makes Redis look like it's running on my local host. So then I try to connect to Redis on my local host. And if that works, I'm happy. And then finally, when I package my app as a Docker container, right? So when my app is here and I've got a Docker container here making it look like it's on local host, that works well. Then when I package my app in a Docker container, now it's a peer to the Redis container. And now localhost, it can't see localhost. And so then I have to tell it where the Redis container is. And I always call my Redis containers Redis. Call me crazy. And so I've hard-coded in here, although you could pass it in as an environment variable if you want to be in true 12-factor fashion. But I've said then, try to connect to something called Redis. And if you can, good. And next week I'll show you how you do that. If not, then fatal error, right? Then can't get to my service. But this is how you would do it for Watson. This is how you would do it for all the services. You go into VCAP services. You go back to see what the structure looks like, and then you just parse the structure, whether you're in Node.js or Java or Python or whatever you're in. Okay. So now we've got this code, and I've got Redis connected. So now, how do I get my code into this project? And deployed. So one way is to just say CF push. And CF push would take the code that's in there, move it into BlueMix, and deploy it. But as I said, when you've got multiple people working on a hackathon, you're working feverishly, you want a little bit more control on that, and GitHub Enterprise is going to be your control. So let's go look at how to add a pipeline to this to deploy the code. Now, if I scroll down, so I'm clicking on Overview. I scroll down to the bottom for continuous delivery, and then if I click Enable, it will automatically build a pipeline for me. Unfortunately, it won't use GitHub Enterprise, and we need to use GitHub Enterprise. So if you were just using regular GitHub, you can go off and do that, and it would work. But for GitHub Enterprise, we have a different way of solving this problem. And then once we solve it, we can go back here and get back to it. So resist the temptation to click Enable, because that will not take you to the right place. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Now, I already have continuous delivery in my services, right? So you can see here, as the screen refreshes, I got active deploy and availability monitoring and cloud, and here's continuous delivery. You're not going to have that the first time, although once you do it, it'll be in your services. So you would go up to catalog, little catalog error, and then you quickly come down to DevOps, and in DevOps you would see continuous delivery. You'd click on that, that would instantiate it, put it into your environment, and then you can continue with this, with what I'm doing here. So you would click on continuous delivery. Once you added it, you'd get to this screen. So here's the continuous delivery screen. There's 3 places you can go. Start here, we'll create a pipeline. There's some really sophisticated tool chains you can do, creating tool chains with all sorts of other tools, Slack integration, a whole bunch of stuff. And then if you already have tool chains, there's a little link down at the bottom. I don't know why it's so small, to view your existing tool chains. So what I'm going to do is I want to create a new tool chain just for this lab BlueMix JR that I created. So I'm going to click on Start here. And it's important that you remember the name of your app that you deployed, because you're going to need it to configure it. Because it's going to say, do you want to do Cloud Foundry or custom? Next time we'll do custom because we're going to do Docker, but this time we're using Cloud Foundry. So we just click on Cloud Foundry, and now it wants to know the pipeline name. I hate these unique names. I love the fact that you're unique, but I hate the fact that I can't remember them. So I'm going to call this lab-BlueMix-JR. Did I use JR or did I use CF? I think I used JR. So I'm going to do lab BlueMix JR. Notice it's defaulting my application name to the same thing. And then for the actual toolchain name, I think I'll append the same thing there. So I have toolchain lab BlueMix JR. So there are toolchains, which are a number of tools. And then there are pipelines, which are one of the tools in the chain. Right? So it's asking me for my pipeline name, my app name. I'm going to create a new tool chain. I have some existing ones for some work that I've been doing. I'm not going to use any of those tool chains, but I'm going to create a new tool chain. And here's why you wanted to come in this way. It was for selecting your source code provider. So now you get to choose from GitHub Enterprise, the real GitHub, or the BlueMix GitHub. So BlueMix has its own GitHub. And if you were to just create that pipeline the other way, I believe it now throws it into the BlueMix GitHub. So I think you might even need to use this for regular GitHub, but clearly for enterprise GitHub, which you should be working on, you want to come here. So this is why I came in this way instead of hitting the enable. Don't ask me why enable doesn't have this option. That is something we need to ask the BlueMix developers. So now, I create my provider. The first time you click on this, it's going to say authorize. You're going to click on authorize, and it's going to send you to BlueMix Enterprise, and it's going to say, do you want to authorize, it's going to send you to GitHub Enterprise, and it's going to say, do you want to authorize BlueMix Toolchain to access your GitHub repo? You say yes, because that's what you want. And then it will give it access, and then you'll come back to this screen. So I've already done that once, which is why you can't see that. But notice what it's showing me here. It's showing me my repos. These are all the repos that are in my GitHub under Rofrano, my last name. And then there are other repos. So these are the other projects. So what we do usually in GitHub Enterprise is every project creates an organization, so kind of an org equals a project. I believe that Wolfgang, when he showed you how to use GitHub Enterprise, told you to create an organization for your hackathon project. That's the way to go, right? So then you would go to other repos and you would find your project in here, probably be a much smaller list for you. The cool thing about it is it actually sorts these by activity. So the ones you use the most are always at the top, which is kind of cool. I'm going to go back over to my repos because I happen to deploy this code, and I want to take this code from my repo. Actually, no, I don't want to take it from my repo. I actually want it from the DevOps research repo, if I'm correct. So let me go find that one. So this is the lab BlueMix CF. So here we go. Example, desktop, cloud. Oh, there's a search. Lab dash. Here we go. Oh, BlueMix pipeline. Where's my BlueMix CF? Oh, I think I may have already created a pipeline from it. So it doesn't show you ones that you've already created pipelines from, and I must have forgot to delete the pipeline. So let me do it on my local one. I'll do it on this lab BlueMix JR. It's different code. So that's important to understand. You can only create one pipeline for a repository, and so I probably already created a pipeline for that one, and it's not showing it, so that you don't have two pipelines kicking off from the same repo. One repo, one pipeline. My login session expired. Oh my. Yes, you told me that before. Okay, so you'll notice my setup has failed. Your setup will fail too, every time. Again, don't know why this isn't on a different screen. but you have to go to reconfigure, and you have to click I understand, whether you understand or not. And more importantly, track deployment of code changes, right? So I understand, track deployment of code changes. Now notice, I get the opportunity here to start with a new library, fork an existing library, clone an existing library. I'm gonna link to some code that I already have in my GitHub Rofrano lab BlueMix JR. So let me go up here and back. Let me start a new thing here and go to GitHub. Just wanna show you where this stuff is. So these are, which are mine? Lab, BlueMix Rofrano, JR, this one. So this is not the version of code that I want to have up here. This is just the welcome Pi code, unfortunately. So this is not going to work. But that is what it would have, or that's what it will pull. Well, let's pull it anyway. Save integration. Okay, so now all of it looks fine. I've got the code here. I've got a delivery pipeline. I'm going to click on this delivery pipeline. It's all configured for me. And you'll notice it hasn't been built. It hasn't been deployed. This little run button here will allow it to run, but I don't want to touch that. What I want to do is I want to make a change to the code and then deploy it. Now, what I was going to do, I was going to actually change the code on my workstation and then do a git commit and deploy it that way. But since I couldn't get that repo up there, I'm going to actually make a change right here. So let me change the manifest YAML file. This is already set up for 2 instances, and this one is not using the Redis cloud. So let me go change that. So I'm going to go into edit. And let me change it to 3 instances just so you can see. Okay, so now I'm going to go commit these changes, right? Update it for demo. Now, I'm going to do something you should never, ever, ever do. I'm a trained professional. Don't try this at home. I'm going to commit to master. You guys should work in branches. Why? More than one person on a project, more than one person changing things. You want to be in a branch. I think Wolfgang told you this. Work on a branch for your little piece and then merge it into master. So master always stays deployable, because at the end of the hackathon, they want to see something running. So if master is always deployable, always running, even if you can't get your latest feature in, you can deploy and demo what you did get in. But if you start working and pushing to master and stuff doesn't work, hackathon over, right? Your code's not working, not going to be impressive. So please do yourself a favor, work in branches. But I'm going to commit to master. So I committed that to master. Now I'm going to go back over to the pipeline. Honest, nothing up my sleeves, nothing up here. It's running, right? Here it is running, updated for demo. So it's showing me this is the last thing that I changed, right? My last commit message. The build passed. Now it's running in stage. Now we're not going to see any change because it's going to deploy the initial code. So let me go back up and I'm going to go back in here and make another change while that's deploying. So let me go back to code. I'm going to go to the static file and go to the index.html. And what does this say? It says table, oh, that's table, hi there. Okay, so let's edit this. Hi there, fellow blue hackers. There we go. Again, updated greeting, commit the change, go back and see what's running here. So now, something to be cautious of, right? So now the build is running while deploy is still running, because every commit you make to master is going to go redeployed, right? You've got that tag set up, so it's going to go redeploy the code. Now, if you don't want to sit here and wonder what's going on, there's a link called View logs and history. So if we click on view logs and history, we can actually see this deploy. So we got one queued, and now we're going to watch. Oh, the deploy 2 is running already. Okay, so the first one passed. So here, using the manifest. So it found my manifest. It's going to use my manifest and the names that I gave it. It's going to redeploy this. It's binding to the Redis service here, right? So this time it's binding Redis to the service. It's stopping the app, and then it's going to upload the code, download the build pack first, upload the code, combine it with the build pack, and then go redeploy this thing. While this is running, let me go back to BlueMix. So let me open up a new window for BlueMix here, because I want to show you that there's really 3 instances running. There better be 3 instances running. So I go back to BlueMix JR, and I click on it. Oh, and so there you go. So 3 instances running, right? So when it brings this up, it's going to bring 3 instances of it up, okay? So that, you know, if one goes down, 2 others are still running. When one goes down, it'll be brought back up, and that's how you get your high availability. Let's go back and see what's cooking with the deployment. So it's doing a pip install for you Python folks out there. That's installing all of the libraries that I put in my requirements file. So if we go look at the code in the requirements file, requirements.txt, I said I need Flask, I need Redis. I use nose test to do my my nose testing, unit testing, and I use red nose to color the testing. So another good thing, I know it's kind of hard in a hackathon to write test cases, right? So I've got test cases written for this code because in my model, I have this pet model here, which is actually the persistence. So this is what's dealing with all the Redis stuff, so that none of that is in my my controller. You know, you want to have your actual Flask app to be very lightweight. Put all your business logic in a model, just, you know, good programming style. And so I have 2 sets of tests. I have one test just to test the model, regardless of the Flask app, right? It just tests the model, and another one that does the tests. And so I'm going to come here, and I'm going to run them. Now, it's saying something went wrong. Something went horribly wrong. All these tests fail, right? Why did they fail? If I scroll up high enough, it'll probably tell me, right? They all failed. You got a system exit because there was no Redis. Now remember, I told you that I run all my middleware in Docker containers. So I've got Redis kind of quiesced in the background. If I do a Docker ps -a, and I'll show you this next week or in a day or 2, you can see that I've got Alpine Redis just sitting there waiting for me to start it up. So I'm going to do a Docker start Redis. I now have Redis running in a Docker container, that easy. And then I'm going to do my nose tests again. And now my nose tests are happy. And if I say verbose and use red nose, they get a little bit nicer. So they're all my test pass. Probably not in a hackathon environment, but in a real environment, you check out somebody's code, the first thing you do, run the test cases. Make sure that everything works. Because if you break something, you want to know that you broke it. Somebody else, it wasn't broken when you downloaded it. So I always get in the habit, run the test cases first, make sure they all pass, and then start adding my brilliance to the code. Okay, where are we here? Look, finished successfully. So there it is. All right, down at the bottom here, if I can make this a little bigger. Down at the bottom, I've got 1, 2, 3 instances running. It finished successfully. And now if I go back up to my service and I refresh it, it should say, don't make a liar out of me. Oh, this is the CF version. I didn't make it JR, did I? I made it CF. You guys probably knew that and said, he's going to be shocked. So hi there, fellow blue hackers, okay? So regardless of, you know, what you want to play with, what language you want to use, whether you use the Watson services or whatever, this is the basic flow of going into BlueMix and deciding on what build pack do I want to use, right? And then what services do I want to play with? Bind those services, get them out of VCAP services, you know, in my code, and then redeploy the whole thing. So let's go back and look at, I want to go back and look at that DevOps pipeline. So I'm going to go back to the pipeline. Right, so there are the 2 steps in the pipeline, and it executed correctly. If I know in a hackathon you might not be writing test cases, but if you wanted to add something to the pipeline, let's just go configure. We'll add a new job to the build stage. So I can go to these jobs and say add a job. I'm going to add a test job. You notice just gives you a little shell here where I can say pip install. Oh, actually, I want to say sudo pip install -r requirements. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. I did not. Let me type slower. Requirements.txt, and then nose tests, right? And so that is all that I'm going to put in there. I could enable test coverage and have coverage reports. I could store the results in an XML file, but all I'm going to do is just do pip install requirements and then nose tests, and then I'm going to run this manually again. So you see that last commit was update greeting. So now it's doing a build. It's running the build. And then it's going to run my test. And again, you can view the logs if you want to see what's going on. These are the build logs. The build finished successfully. Now it's running the tests. It's going to come up in here and do a pip install. And not happy. Download package flash. So I don't know why. I couldn't find the flash package. So not happy. C extensions could not be compiled. Okay. So probably too old a version of Flask. That was a really old repo that I used, unfortunately. But then you start your debugging, right? So you'd use these logs and then figure out what went wrong. That's the time when I move over to CF push, right? So now if I'm debugging here and it's not going quite right, so then I would do the CF push from here. So let me just show you what that looks like. Oh, actually, this is going to push to Bluemix CF. So I totally got my names incorrect here. So let me do a CF push here. Oh, actually, yeah. Let me show you what that one looks like. Just to show you the CF. So if you use the command line, the same thing you were seeing in the logs, right? Not very different. So this time it's doing the Bluemix-CF, mybluemix.net. And same thing. It's going through, it's uploading my code, downloading the build packs, combining the 2 of them together, and then doing a push. While that's happening, let me go back out just to show you again. Here's the dashboard. Obviously, I have more apps on my dashboard. One of the things about Bluemix is the dashboard changes depending on what you used last. So because I use services last, they're on top and apps are on the bottom. And then if I select an app and I come back, apps will be on top and services will be on the bottom. So you will find that you will scroll more often than you care to. I truly appreciate that we're trying to make it easy for developers, but it drives me nuts. But I love them anyway. So here's, right, so this is my one instance. So I didn't change this from what it was. And that's the Bluemix CF running. We didn't make a pipeline for that guy yet. Let's see how this is going on the command line. Yeah, see Flask 12, and I was using 10.1 on the other one. So we can go off and try to fix that or leave it. I'll just leave it for now. You guys get the idea, right? The whole idea here is that you want to go back to the catalog. You want to go in and start with, let's go to the top. Oh, that is the top. Oh yeah, it's got the compute storage first. The one thing about Bluemix is it's always adding new services, and the bad thing about Bluemix is it's always adding new services. So it drives you nuts sometimes. But here are all the boilerplates. So hackathon, get an idea. What are we going to do it in? Let's do it in Node.js. You know, maybe you want to use Node-RED starter or whatever. You know, you click on it, you get it going. Download the sample code. put that into your, create a GitHub repository in GitHub Enterprise, push your code up there, and then set up the DevOps pipeline the way I showed you. And again, all these charts, right? So just to go back to my charts, all the charts are in here to show you how to set up the pipeline, circles and arrows, click, beep, bop, boop, the whole thing, right? I explained the whole thing to you. And we'll make this PDF file available as well with this video. Okay, sorry, there's only 5 minutes left, but are there any questions?
For the people on the call, there is a option of Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If you do have any questions, please feel free to use that, and I will move you into the panelist view so you may ask your question live. Or you could type your questions into the Q&A panel as well. We currently do not have any.
No questions. Everybody knows how to deploy. You're like BlueMix ninjas now.
Oh my gosh.
Got it.
That is impressive.
You get to the first screen and you'll go, what did he say again? Then you can watch the video or look at the PDF, whatever you like. Right.
That's true. We do have a few more minutes, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. Where will all this be made available?
Good question.
So we have started to put together a Slack channel where everything will be made available to you. All these webinars will be made available to you there. You should get the invite for it before the end of the day today. All right. Yes, it will be sent to your IBM email addresses. It'll be an invitation to a Slack channel that you will receive. And once you become a part of that Slack channel, all of the recordings and the PDFs of this demo will be available to you within that Slack channel. Okay, John, we do have a couple of questions. Is there an easy way to copy environment variables between apps instead of adding them manually?
So you can add environment variables on the CF commands, so you can inject them that way. So there is a way with the CF commands to add environment variables to an app and to query the environment variables in the app. So I would imagine if you didn't want to go in, and you're right, I didn't show you guys how to do environment variables. I'll show you next time we do the Docker piece. So what you can do is you can probably do a CF query to list the environment variables from one app, and then maybe cut and paste them into another CF command that injects them into the other app. That's probably the quickest way to do it with the command line. But no, there's no way to copy them all and paste them over on the other side.
All right, perfect. We do have another question. It is, what is the difference between GitHub Enterprise and GitHub? Why do we use the former over the latter?
Okay, so GitHub Enterprise is hosted within IBM, and GitHub is publicly available on the internet. Now, you can get to GitHub Enterprise from the internet, but you have to authenticate through our IBM single sign-on. So people in the public really can't get access to GitHub Enterprise, right? So GitHub Enterprise is where we store all of our code so no one else can see it. So when we make something public on GitHub Enterprise, it's not public to the world. It's just public to IBMers, right? Whereas in GitHub, when you make something public, anybody can go see it. So the stuff that's on my public GitHub account, anybody can get to. The stuff that's in my GitHub Enterprise account, only IBMers can get into. So it's IBM's own version of GitHub that's hosted for us internally. Otherwise, it's identical.
Perfect. Another question. I was playing with BlueMix, and it seems like I have to be paying 7 cents a month.
So as you saw, BlueMix will not let you create something that you can't pay for. because it asked me to upgrade my account when I was going to add the expensive Redis. So yes, so here, it'll tell you that these things are costing money. Here's my compliance service. I'm just going to click on it because it's been running for a while. So it's saying I owe $2.03. I've never gotten a bill. This is just kind of telling you, if you did not have a free IBM BlueMix account, this is what it would cost you, but don't worry, you're not going to get charged. It will not let you create something that you're going to get charged for unless you have a valid credit card on your account. Don't worry about it. It's informational only.
Perfect.
So let me show you where those environment variables, I click on runtime here because I hadn't done that for you guys. So here's the memory instance, but here's environment variables, right? So if I wanted to inject some environment variables in there, right, I would inject them there. There is an SSH. I don't know why they added it. They shouldn't have, in my estimation, because runtime should be immutable. But there is a way to inject environment variables into your applications using that. And you can also do that in the pipeline. If we look at, if we go to overview, this guy's got a pipeline, tool chain, and look at the pipeline. You'll see that when I go to configure, that's the other place you could put environment variables, environment properties. So if I wanted to add some properties to my build, I could add those in the environment here. I could also add properties. Sorry, another question?
Yes, one more. What limitations will we run into in terms of numbers of services or applications by running off our provided BlueMix account? And is there a means around these limitations if needed?
Okay, so the limitations, I believe, are 2 gigabytes for a regular account, although they may have reduced it to 1, I'm not sure. So there's a limited amount of memory. The memory on my account's been upgraded, so it's hard to say, but let's look at if it gives me. So you're limited to 4 or 6 services, a small amount of services. So I've got 40 on mine. I had my account bumped up. And then I've got mine bumped up to 8, but yours might say 1 or 2. So you will be limited to that. One of the reasons why I like working in Python is because you can do these little 64, megabyte services, and they run perfectly well. Java kind of has a big runtime and needs a lot more memory. So picking things that don't need a lot of memory is probably a good idea. If this inhibits you from, or you feel that it's going to inhibit you from getting stuff done in the hackathon, we can look into, and I believe somebody already is looking into, because we thought about this, of how you guys can have your accounts upgraded to a little bit more memory and whatnot. So I'm not sure what the answer is going to be, but we are working on it. So let people know if you need more resources, you need more services than is available, and we'll try to accommodate that.
Excellent. All right, I know we're a little over our time, but do we have any more questions? Oh, just had one come in. Just saying thank you.
I would like to thank you very much. This was very instructive. I learned a great deal about it too. So
my pleasure.
That's wonderful, John. Thank you. Really,
if I saved you a week of banging your head against the wall, it was my pleasure.
Oh, you just did. Quite honestly, you did. For those of you who ask about services and cost and things like that, if you see any of that and you have any question, just let us know. Again, we are using live environment. We're using production environment, but the main objective is for you to create MVPs, minimum viable products. So at the end of the day, you're creating a prototype, you're creating something that works, and we want to make you successful. We want to allow you to do that. And again, we don't know everything that we don't know. So again, we will be around, and we will make it happen. And if, again, as John said, if you need a bit more resources, let us know. If you are okay with that instance, perfect. We're working on seeing if we have a research group where we can actually get everyone in one big block, or if you are working with the IBM accounts, again, you may have gotten a code, please go ahead and use it. If you are creating your own account for the first time, again, just let us know what are the challenges you're seeing, and we will keep fixing them. within a couple of hours, we'll get everyone fixed. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Sergio. And everyone, thank you for your time again. And John, thank you again. This was very, very informational. And we look forward to the next session.
Yep.
And it will be available on the box. So if you want to see that again, okie doke.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank
Take care.
you.